It is time for the TikTok Famous podcast, and I am here with Peaceful Nik the Medium. She is an evidentiary, a medium, and she's also a scientist. So this is going to be a great interview. So stay with us.
You're listening to the TikTok Famous podcast, where viral fame meets raw reality. Join your host, Meredyth as she dives deep with your favorite creators to uncover the real stories behind the scroll, the highs, the lows, the algorithm chaos, and everything in between. This is not your average interview. This is the TikTok Famous podcast.
I finally have you in the studio. Thank you so much for being here.
I am so honored and so happy to be here talking to you on the TikTok Famous podcast.
I know. I'm so excited. This is great because we're both mediums.
Yes.
Do you consider yourself psychic?
I do. I consider all mediums psychic, but not all psychics are medium.
Yes. We are so in alignment because I told my husband, I'm sitting there drinking my coffee this morning before this, and I'm like, I really hope this TikTok Famous podcast takes off because I've literally blended the best of both worlds. Like I get to watch TikToks and then I get to talk to the people that are making the TikToks and get to know them a little bit more. And it's just so funny because do you know Matilda, the medium Matilda? She does more like predictions.
Mm-hmm. A little bit, yeah.
So she was on last week and it's just amazing that the people that I am in alignment with, as of course, we are so alike in the way that we view. Like, there's no scary, there's no negative, there's no demons and all that stuff, and also science based.
Yes, and you know what else? The reason why I started following you is because we have almost the same last name. My last name is Willett.
I literally just saw that when I was going through, because I like to go through everybody's link tree before I talk to them because there's so much information in there about everything about them. And I was like, wait, it's almost the exact same last name.
Yep. When I saw you pop up on my TikTok, I don't know, 3 or 4 years ago, I'm like, oh my God, she has almost the same last name as me.
So
what
funny.
Are the odds of that?
So how did you become a medium? You were a scientist, you have a degree in all this science stuff, and then all of a sudden, hey, I talk to dead people. Give us your background.
Yeah, basically that's what happened. I've been working in science communication and education for over 20 years. Never planned on being a medium. I was aware of woo-woo stuff because my mom was woo-woo, but she passed away in 1986. So she didn't really get to explore that very much. And I was going on with my happy little science life, teaching, and I'm the education director for Humans to Mars organization. And one day I got a phone call. A friend of the family passed away, and I had not seen this person since they were newborn. He was at the time 25 years old when he passed. And in my head, claircognizantly, I knew he passed from a drug overdose. Now, I didn't say that on the phone, but that happened to me all the time. I didn't know that was like an ability. I just thought everybody knew stuff, and I really didn't know. And I laid down a little while later to take a nap, and all of a sudden, in my mind's eye, within a few seconds of laying down, I could see him 3-dimensionally, full color, like a video, saying, leaning in, red sweater, gold chain, black short hair, saying, "Tell my mom I'm sorry, I didn't mean to do it."
Oh, wow.
And that was the day he passed. So I was like, what? Nothing like that ever happened to me before. And so I sat up, of course. I was like, that was a lot of energy that came in. And I called my sister. She texted the mom. And, of course, it was a dramatic day because her son passed.
Yeah.
And eventually, over the next couple of days, I had texted with the mom. And then 4 days later, we found out he did pass from a drug overdose. So I was like, okay, that was crazy. And I kind of blew it off because, well, I was busy. I had 2 jobs, I've got a family, I'm cooking dinner, doing laundry, the whole thing. And then a few months later, the same thing happened with my daughter-in-law. Her grandmother passed. And the day my son was with her when she passed in hospice care, and the day she passed, she kept sending me this red heart. I actually have it in the other room. This red heart, this red heart, this red heart. And I didn't know what it was. It had her name on it. And I texted my son and I said, oh my God, Dottie will not leave me alone. She's coming in my mind. I don't know how to explain it. And she showed me this red heart with her name on it. And he immediately texted me the picture that he had picked it up right at her passing. And it was her keychain with her name on it. And my knees buckled and I thought, oh my God, do I need a CAT scan? What is going on here? And then I went on YouTube and listened to a million different mediums. And I found one that really I vibed with. She was super real. She would say it how it was. She didn't, fake anything. And I signed up for courses and got trained and started my mediumship journey. It just changed my life completely.
That's how mine was. It was that relentless.
Right.
Wouldn't go away. They're like, until you deliver this message, we are going to keep knocking on your door. We are going to follow you. We are going to keep delivering the exact same message. And I still have that in appointments now. Like it'll come in and I'm like, it'll come in. I'm like, I'm like, okay, they've come 3 times. I'm supposed to tell you this. Like sometimes it's like the thing that maybe I would filter and I'm like, I don't know if it's appropriate to say that to a client. Or maybe they're not ready for that. And then it just keeps coming and it's just like, no, they're ready for it. They need that. And so I'm like, all right, all bets are off. Here's what they keep bringing to me. I actually tell them I've ignored it twice. We're at the 3rd time now. So I'm going to tell you this during appointment. And a lot of times those, as I'm sure you know, are the most powerful, as I say, sometimes punches in the face of like you're not doing what you're supposed to in life, or you know what I mean? Or you need to like, enough is enough. It's usually, a punch in the face, as I like to call it.
Well, and I do the same exact thing. That's so funny because I send everything back 3 times when a client says, no, I don't understand that. No, I don't. And I send it back. And then sometimes, our clients have psychic amnesia and they are just not thinking of that thing in the moment.
Yeah.
And then later you'll get an email and be like, oh yeah, I found that sweater that my grandma knitted with the blue and purple hearts or whatever it is. Mm-hmm. And and sometimes those are very meaningful and important things. And it is the messages in readings to me sometimes come in the form of evidence and sometimes the message is the evidence. Yes. Have you found that?
Yes. A lot of times people, they almost don't care what I'm saying. They care that there's no way I could know it. You know what I mean? Like, yes. It's like, for example, I just had it was the most fun one. The grandmother had just passed and I just kept seeing them eating soup. I'm like, this is so dumb. Because I knew they were having a luncheon. So I didn't want to give like a cheap, like, I'm watching you eat soup and I don't know what it is. And I knew that was a cheap because we're going to talk about evidentiary mediumship versus your father loves you.
I say that all the
time. But it was so cute. But I'm like, this is so dumb. I can't tell her I keep seeing you eating soup because I knew they were going down to the funeral, yada. And so a couple weeks had passed. And then her and her mom, I think they were in appointment with me at the same time. Yes. And they were like, oh my gosh, remember the soup? And I was like, of course I do, because I did tell them, I'm like, hey, I keep seeing soup. I don't know what it's about. And they're like, yeah, I have no idea what you're talking about. And it's kind of awkward, right? That moment when they can't figure it out. You don't know. Sometimes I'm like, maybe ask your mom. Like, I just am telling you what I'm seeing and they won't leave me alone because the 3. And so I deliver it. Well, fast forward 3 weeks, the funerals pass by, yada, yada. They're in the car and she looks down at her phone and she goes, oh my gosh, some voicemails from grandma. And so she's like, do you want me to play them? And so she hits the voicemail and plays it. And it's like, hey, honey, I hope you got the soup that I sent in the mail to college. Just want to say I love you. And they howled. They're like, it's Meredyth in the soup. Oh my gosh. But it's like those things and I used to do, I don't know if you've ever done it, but it's great. It's Facebook Live. And I did Facebook Live. I would say like 10 years ago, and I called it Monday Night Medium. I got like 50,000 to 500,000 people watching at times. And wow. I know, I would get off and I'd be like shaking because I'm like, there were 500,000 people that had watched that. I mean, wow. It was overwhelming. And I was a baby medium psychic, baby. And so many times I would say XYZ and they'd like, no. And then they'd message me and be like, I lost a baby, but never told anybody.
Right.
Or I eloped and no one knows still. Like, so it was like a lot of that too, where it was live and people were like, oh my gosh, that's a thing. But I just didn't want to say it. Or my mom knew about it. And then I'd get messages later.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that so many times that does happen. And it's not like we're wrong. It's just like you're saying, it's not on the forefront of their head as we're bringing stuff through.
Or they're keeping it secret, like you said. And I teach that in my classes, how to deal with no's. We go over that for like a half of a class when I have my mentorships. And I always say, listen, spirit knows. Spirit knows. Spirit has intelligence. If they're giving you information, there's a reason. It's the human client that mixes stuff up or doesn't remember. It's not spirit. Spirit knows stuff you don't know or that you don't remember. And so we do a practice reading where I bring in sitters and the baby mediums have to give readings and the sitters have to say no to everything they say.
I would die.
Right or wrong. And so it's very nerve-wracking for the baby mediums, but it's good for them to get that practice, because when you do become a professional medium and you have somebody saying, no, no, I don't know about the soup. I don't know about grandma's sweater. I don't know. No, that never happened. It can throw you and then you ruin your reading. And then you're just like, oh my God, I'm a terrible medium. And then you start beating yourself up. So it's important to know spirit's smarter than humans.
Yep. Knows all.
Surprise to us. And it's okay if the client says no, because they're going to remember it later. Or like this, I'm sure happens to you. You give a reading. Well, with the soup, that's the same thing with the soup. They heard it later. They found it out later. And I tell clients when they come in, I say, listen, some things I may say could have happened 20 or 30 or 40 years ago.
Yep.
They could have happened yesterday. They could have happened 10 minutes ago, or they could happen tomorrow, 2 weeks, or in 2 months.
I always say, just look for it. Be patient. It's coming. It's either coming today, coming tomorrow. That's one thing. And I said it to Matilda when she was on last week. I was like, I tell people, like, I know this sounds like it's coming from ego, but it so isn't. I'm never wrong because it's not me. I might be interpreting it wrong. And when that happens, I don't know if you do this, but I'll go, I'll see it in my head. So I'm clairvoyant primarily, and Claire's sentient. Like I just know they make me feel in my physical body, yada. And like it's just like, okay, I see a cop walking up to my front door. This is exactly what I told her. And they're just like, I don't know anyone that's a cop. And I'm like, okay. And so it's like, no. And I'm like, okay, I was interpreting. I'm like, so instead of me interpreting, I'm going to tell you exactly what I'm seeing. There is a person in a uniform coming to the front. They're like, oh, my brother's in the military. And I'm like, okay. So sometimes we interpret it wrong through our own lens of what we think a person in uniform is. Because I don't know anyone in the service. So my interpretation of someone walking to the door looking like that would be a police officer.
Because that's in your database. And I also teach that to my students. It's like, we all have a different life experience. I'm not a world traveler, even though it's on my bucket list to travel the world, but I don't have the database. If your grandma was a world traveler, I'm not going to see what she saw. I'm going to interpret it through a movie I watched or something, because we all live a different life. We all see things differently. And we call it the database, as you probably know. And the misinterpretation, yes, that happens all the time. And yes, we need to say there's a person in uniform. So sometimes if I see somebody in the military, I'll say military, police, fireman, somebody who, works in, service in that way.
Yeah.
And that helps, because we are sometimes saying exactly what we think it is, but it's really that. So absolutely, yes, that happens to me.
So I know that, social media is a mode of marketing, like obviously. However, there's a lot of different reasons why each of us create. Sometimes it's from being stifled as children and not being heard. Sometimes it's, the love of teaching, a connection, whatever. What is your, I don't know, inspiration every day for creating content anywhere?
So I had Instagram and Facebook for a long time. I did not have TikTok until I became a medium. And if you look back on some of my first videos.
Oh, mine are ridiculous. I'm literally sitting inside my closet.
They're so bad.
They're so bad.
And my inspiration for creating on TikTok was to reach people with my message of mediumship, right? I didn't know what I was doing. I was working full time and doing mediumship on the side. And I thought, okay, everybody's crazy about TikTok. And my daughter-in-law actually sent me a TikTok of a medium, and I couldn't open it because I didn't have TikTok.
Yeah,
Oh, I can't watch it. And so then a couple of weeks later, I'm like, maybe she's on to something. Maybe I should start TikTok and see what happens. And I think I had 1,000 viewers with 1,000 followers in a couple of weeks. And then I want to say 10,000 in a month. I could be more than that, but it went really fast. And my videos were terrible. I mean, I don't know what happened. But I wouldn't have the mediumship business I have now without TikTok.
Yeah.
And so I created.
You can just reach so many people. Like it's just throws your content out into the ethos, and it's insane.
And you never know who's gonna see it, who's gonna talk to you. And then I started doing live readings there, and that's how I really grew my platform there and grew my business. I wouldn't have been able to do it otherwise. But now I'm kind of moving towards YouTube. Sorry, but I'm moving towards YouTube because we don't know what's going to happen. But I create content because I'm an educator at heart. And I think it's important for people to know and understand that this isn't some woo-woo demon stuff. This is important. This is healing. I grew up Catholic, and if anything taught me to be witchy and woo-woo, it was Catholicism.
Get out the incense.
The burning, the incantations, the repetitive, things like that, the meditation, saying the rosary, things like that. So yeah, I think the education is the biggest reason why I made content. And luckily it turned into a huge clientele for me. So my intention wasn't to build clientele. My intention was to make educational content about mediumship as I was still learning too. But the byproduct was my mediumship business took off.
How do you explain to people? Because I think a lot of the mediums, quotes, in quotes, that do get a lot of traction on social media are the fearmongers, the ones that are saying you have a hex, you have a curse, your loved one has not crossed over. You need to pay me $5,000 to cross them over. We all know the ones, right? They're the ones that are messaging you and I saying they see something special in us. And if we want a reading, which is like my favorite, I'm just like, you're such a turd.
I get friend requested by the fake accounts of me on Facebook and TikTok.
Stop it.
Yeah, I do.
I'm like, my gosh.
See my name, you friend. Yeah. Anyway.
That's wild. So there is that. And I always am like, I've made videos on it. I think you've even commented on some of them. Like you do not have a curse. I've seen a curse literally twice in 20 years. And what I mean by that is someone that is wishing you negative energy and you are leaning into it and it is affecting you because you have leaned into this idea of a curse. It's not like they have dominion over your soul. You guys are in this weird knotted thing that's happening between you and your aunt or whatever. And you are perpetuating it. So and I know you talk about the fact that there is no demons, there is no whatever. Why do you think okay, how do I say this? I know scientifically that there's no possible way to have that. why do you think people love to believe it? That there's negative and
Oh, I'm
curses and
so glad you asked this question. And it has so many
of course.
tentacles.
Of course.
People want to believe in negative things because they feel negative on the inside. And if you are, a lot of people don't realize they grow up in a negative, toxic environment. They grow up with a lot of dysfunction and chaos in their life. And so what appeals to them? Negativity and chaos and dysfunction.
It's the
You
same
can be,
frequency.
pardon?
It's at the same frequency. That
Right.
negativity it aligns with, it's tapping into that negative that lives in them.
Exactly. And so I don't want clients who are going to be coming from that place. And I don't want them to be attracted to my content because, well, and they won't be because I'm not putting that stuff out, right? I'm not going to say demons and hell and all that, you're stuck and you can't move on. So to me, it is very, very frustrating to see people on a live stream with thousands of people watching, and they're saying all these negative things, first of all, that are incorrect, that are just unethical in so many ways. And people are ching, 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 giving them money, giving them money, giving them money. And I'm like, when I'm putting out a positive message, there are some times when you're just scraping for every single client. You're doing everything you can. You're putting out as much as you can just to get people to notice that, hey, I'm here. I'm available to help you heal. And then you've got these other people, or they're putting on a big show, a big show. And there's a sort of previously famous medium who goes live on TikTok a lot, and he charges a decent amount of money. And sometimes he doesn't even finish the readings, and he'll just say, I'll send you a video later. And it's like, and they're not coming on the screen or anything. And he's on his computer typing, and he's looking, so I don't know.
Consider to say yes or no, you're right or wrong.
I think it's in the chat, but there's so many people watching. Like, I don't know how they could even answer or see the validations. I think people need to be really careful. The best thing to do if you want a reading is to find somebody who vibes with you and get a one-on-one reading, period. Yeah. That's the best thing to do. And there are ranges of prices for different mediums, but one-on-one is the best. Don't give your money to people who are not ethical on social media.
Yeah, and it's easy to do because 90% of those people are fear mongering. They're like, yes. Because it's always what I get is the fallout of those situations. That's who's coming to me, is the fallout of the fear mongering, of I just paid someone $500 to get a curse off of me.
Yes.
And I need to know if it's gone, if it was real. Like, I'm so afraid. And like, they say they need more money from me. And I'm like, oh my God, how do I tell this person without telling this person they just got scammed? Because it's so painful.
Yes. And that's a lot of money.
Some people are $5,000 to get rid of a curse. Like, some people, it's bad. So the thing, what I was just hearing coming through when we're talking about the negativity and why people want to believe in it, what I was hearing while you were saying that too was a lot of people feel helpless, and the scary part, the hell, the retribution, it actually is a way for them to feel like something's going to happen to their bully or their mean person in their life. Like something bad happened to me. I want something bad to happen to them, but I'm a victim. And so hopefully God will handle them. Hopefully the devil will take them. That's kind of what I was also hearing, was it gives people that feel weak a place to put the bad things. And that I think is one of the hardest things to talk about on social media. Tell me if I am wrong, is what happens to the bad people. And I'm always like, I know you want to believe that the person that murdered your loved one or worse is going to hell.
Yes.
But they're already in hell. Like, they're living in hell right now. That is why they have this horrible life where they do hurt people is their hell. I promise you. This is some sort of karmic situation. I believe in karma is what you put out, you get back,
Yes,
because, that's
I
just,
agree.
it's not like this thing. It's just, we are what we eat.
Right. Exactly. Exactly.
Right. But that's what I was hearing is like people need some place to put that negative instead of like, I'm going to kill you because you killed my kid. It's you're going to go to hell. And that makes me make it make sense.
I have two things to say. One was a Dolores Cannon video I just saw recently that applies to this exactly. And another is I put out a similar video to what you're talking about a couple days ago, and someone
Of
responded
course.
to me that, well, you can't say it was my fault that I was drugged and raped.
Such
And
a
I'm like,
hard
first of
conversation.
all, I didn't say that in that video.
Yeah.
I said I would never blame you for that. And of course, and I said, every human has an animal brain. Our soul is pure. So the human brain is the one that does the crazy and has free will to do the crazy. It's not the soul. The soul is pure.
Yep.
Regardless. And I'm the victim of abuse myself. And it was very, 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 very hard to rectify that when I became a medium because, you can imagine.
You want it to make sense.
Right. And Dolores Cannon the other day, I saw a video pop up and it said, how come some people have an easy life and some people have a hard life? And she said, well, if you see somebody who's having a resting life and they are having a great time and nothing ever happens bad to them, which I don't really believe is happening to anybody, but if
Right.
that's the case, you're lucky. She said, you don't know what life they just came from or what life they're going to next.
Yeah.
So maybe they're having an easier life because they just came from a horrible life.
Yeah.
Or they're getting ready to go in. And I thought, wow, that never occurred to me.
Yeah. I did all of her classes. And it was probably the most important training that I've ever received in my line of medium and psychic and channeling and all that stuff, because it just made everything make so much sense.
Mhm.
And it allowed me to make sense of the awful. It allowed me to digest the
Mhm.
awful. But it also took me from ever in any way, shape, or form, no matter what I go through, it took me out of any sort of victimhood. And
Yeah.
because it's like, nope, sorry, you signed up for this. I don't know why. I don't know what you wanted to learn. I don't know, and or you signed up for Z and you're
Mhm.
screwing up getting to Z. You're taking Q and
Right.
P and J, and they're trying to get you back on the path. And I'm like, oh, so now I live more in alignment with realizing that there is a path, and feeling bad is getting off my path. It's the hangover, right? It's
Mhm.
like they're just tap, 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 get back on your path. You have a
Yeah.
place that
Yeah.
you want to go.
Your
Like,
guys are like, hello.
hello, you're doing
What
it
are you
wrong.
doing?
Exactly. And so, like, or something I needed to experience so that I could have conversations like this. Like there's so many conversations that I have, I know you do too, where we can pull from our past. We can pull from
Yes.
experience. We can say, oh, totally get that.
And I love that you said that because, I've had a life like most people have, right?
Yeah.
And I feel like everything I experienced in my life led me to be the healer I am. And as painful as some of these things were, and horrible as some of these experiences were, it made me a better medium. And right now,
Oh,
I feel like this is what I'm going to be doing for quite a while in my life. Who knows? Anything could happen in the future. But all of those experiences gave me the compassion and understanding and unconditional love for humanity, and seeing that every soul has a purpose for doing and being where they are in the moment. And it just, I know this is going to sound crazy. I'm grateful for those experiences because I wouldn't be, awakening the way I am without them.
yeah. And do you think for yourself because you have chosen this path, earthbound, spirit bound. You were going to get here regardless. They were going to get you here, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Kicking and screaming or otherwise. Do you look back now at your path and go, okay,
Yes,
yeah, like now it makes sense?
absolutely. 100%. I see that clearly now. Very, very clearly that, oh, that I had that encounter. I did that. All of these things. Yes, it was all set in motion, whether I knew it at the time or not. Yes,
And
absolutely.
and do you believe that everybody in some way, shape, or form at different levels is like I believe that everyone's psychic medium. I believe that everyone has this
I
ability.
do.
They just either do or don't lean into it, or they do or don't poo-poo it, whatever.
I agree, and I think that some people, I know we are talking about negativity in people earlier. I think some people have so much pain and negativity in them that they don't allow it to come through. I
Yeah.
think that blocks their ability because they don't want to see it, or they can't conceive of it. Or one of my favorite topics is they have been indoctrinated by some sort of religious organization, which is painful
Yeah.
because they don't the I hope this is okay to say on your
Of
podcast.
course it is.
The churches want you to pay them to talk to God,
Yeah.
even though Jesus said the kingdom of heaven is within us. We
Right.
have the ability. Um, so they make up all these little side rules and interpretations of certain passages. You're talking to demons and all of that. Well, I grew up Catholic, as I said earlier. I was taught to pray to Mary, pray to saints, pray to the Holy Spirit, pray to God, pray to Jesus. None of those people live on earth right now. They all are in spirit.
Right.
So I was taught to pray to spirits, meaning talk to spirits from the get-go. So
Right.
why is it different for a church to say pray to spirits than a person to just talk to spirits? Why is that different? Because the church wants you to write them a check every week, not somebody else. That's my opinion.
No, totally. And honestly, I think that when you do that, when you have, in all honesty, let's just be honest, they're acting as a, card carrying medium.
Exactly. And who approved it? They did.
They
A
approve their
bunch
own
of
mediumship,
men
which
made
is
it up.
which is fine. But it honestly, like a medium, you're saying, here, I want you to do a job for me. But in all actuality, the medium is taking away the power that you yourself have. And I'm a medium and you're a medium, but you guys can also do this. You can also
Yes.
talk to like you teach classes, which we'll get into, but to be able to be a medium. Um, but honestly, the church is a medium. I'm a medium. You're a medium, but you all can do this yourself. You don't need the church. You don't need us. You just need to find that inner guidance system. And I think so often by way of trauma and abuse and programming, we lose that inner guidance. We lose that inner voice. We gaslight ourselves and say, "Oh, I'm just making that up. Oh, that's not real." Like for me, my guidance a lot of times comes in song verse. I'll wake up in the morning and be like, singing a song in my mind, like, where'd that come from? And then I
Right.
like look
Oh,
up the
I get a
lyrics.
lot of songs. A
Yeah,
lot.
I'm always the song. It's
Yeah.
always, and that's for me, usually is like I'm the song one. And meaning I know that if there's a song, it's a direct message for myself. But yeah, I mean, this all is taking away your own dominion over your own experience, your own life. A lot of times the church helps with that. A lot of times it causes more trauma. I am always, when I'm with a person and I know you do the same thing, it's like, just so you know, you can do this yourself. I'm just here to kind of like help, but this is in you. This message is in you. And recently, probably over the last month or so, tell me what you think on this. I am of the understanding that we are all one. Okay, let's
Yes,
start with that. So we're
I
all
agree.
one.
Collective consciousness. Yes.
Collective. So when I'm tapping into a person that is living, because I do that, psychic
Mhm.
or medical mediumship, or someone that is deceased, I am tapping into that part of me that is them.
Very possibly, yes. I never considered that before, but I think because I believe in the collective consciousness, I look at it as, do you remember in the old days, you see them in old movies where the operator had to plug in when somebody would
Yeah.
call?
Yeah.
That's how I
Switchboard
see,
operator.
yeah, I see us plugging into that collective consciousness. So yes, I think that is a fabulous point that you're making. You are tapping into that piece of them because we're all connected. And when I see near-death experiencers talk and they're like, I knew everybody that was there. I didn't have to talk to them in spirit. I knew who everybody was. I knew what our previous experiences were because everything is connected. That's why, if you have you ever heard of random number generators?
Mm-mm.
This is
Like where it just like goes and it like puts
Yeah.
up numbers. Yep.
So this is where I bridge some science and mediumship and psychic stuff. Random number generators are placed all over the world and monitored. And 30 minutes before 9/11, they all did some crazy stuff. At the 30 minutes before 9/11 happened all around the
Damn.
world. And the theory that some people, and I agree with, have come up with is the collective consciousness knew, because this was a plan to happen with these certain people, knew ahead of time that's what was going to happen. That's why the random number generators did all these weird things 30 minutes before the first plane hit. So we have to have some connection to everyone for that to occur, right? It's all connected. And that's yes, 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 yes to that.
Yeah. And I saw that when you do mediumship readings, you allow unless someone specifically asks, like, I want to talk to my grandma, you allow spirit, whatever that looks like, whatever needs to come through first, you will do order up.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
want to talk to
Direct
grandma.
dial up. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Mediumship. I will usually say, give me the first name and a relationship. So Nick, best friend. And
Mhm.
then I'll like, the way I do it, and I go like, I wiggle into them. I'm like, okay, let me find them. I'm like, okay, got them. And then I'll like say a few things and they're like, yep, that's them. So
Okay.
I only, unless, however, comma, as I say, unless it's usually like a spirit guide or someone will start like ramming their way through and they're just like, oh no, they
Yeah.
need to quit that goddamn job. Like they might want to talk to their dog,
Right.
but their mom's coming in and going, oh my gosh, I've been trying to get them to quit their job now for a year and they don't listen. And finally they have an appointment with you. So I will have people barge their way through, but I usually do the, order
Direct.
taker kind of mediumship.
Yeah. I think
Maybe that's lazy.
no, I don't think it's lazy at all. I was trained to do let whoever pops in pop in. That's how I was trained. But I always tell clients, if it's a return client, they know they can do direct. I usually know if it's a return client who they want to talk to
Yeah.
because I've seen them several times. I was trained to see who pops in first because it was taught that, you don't want your client to think you're cheating, right? So that's how I was trained. Now, I was trained from a mentor in the UK, and maybe they have, different stuff, the way they train people over there, but that's how I was trained. And I think for speaking of everything being connected in our life, my past trauma in my childhood caused me not to feel like I was ever believed by anybody. And so I feel like I continue that to this day in my mediumship because I'm afraid people aren't going to believe me, right? If I ask for any information. So I guess that's, something I should probably work on and let go of. And it's part of the ego too. So
Yeah, I always just say first name and relationship, and then I like look for them. Like I'm like try to wiggle around. I use like the family tree in my brain. Like I'm like, okay,
That's
that's dad's
awesome.
side, that's mom's side. Then I wiggle up or to center, like, like, so mine's all visual running around and stuff like that in my head. But I think it goes faster because, like, I know you do. Like, see, you have a 30-minute reading for $99. Great price, by the way, everyone that's watching. P.S. And $150 for 45 minutes, and that's either Zoom or over the phone.
Yes.
So, like, for me to get in 30 minutes, a lot of times people, like, it starts seeping into 40 minutes, by the way. Like, I need to be better about my time. But it just seems to me like it goes faster. And I always just tell people, like, if you asked for food and I gave you eggs and you really wanted ice cream, you'd be mad. So, like, just tell me who you want to talk to. And I, like, again, I always just do first name and relationship. I'm not like first, last name, where they live.
Date of birth, send out a
Right.
questionnaire ahead of time. There are mediums who do that. Well,
Oh my gosh, which is wild. I would never want to know like, I don't even read my friends. I want to know nothing about you. Like, nothing. Because if I start to filter.
That's why I don't read my friends and family.
Yes.
Yeah.
My kids are always like, read me, tell me something. And I'm just like, no, like, I don't want to influence you at all because I have my own influence. You have your influence. Like, I don't want to be like filtering, like, and that's what when I said I became the better medium was when I'm like, when I'm good at this, it's not me. And when I'm, quote, bad at this or it's awkward, it's not me. Like, I remove myself completely from any good or bad.
You're
and then
you're a vessel.
Yeah, then I don't like worry about people believe. I don't give a shit if you believe me. I also don't advertise though. Like, I always have Yelp calling or like the books, like the local books that want me to advertise. I'm like, absolutely not, because I don't want the first 30 minutes of an appointment to be testing me to see if I'm good at this.
Right.
Everyone comes in because they know who I am or they've been referred. We just jump right into it. There's no fear. So that to me, I think makes it feel different. How did your family go from you being a scientist Catholic to being a card carrying medium on social media, posting that everything that you've learned growing up, basically, that there's a heaven and a hell and a purgatory, and if you don't do it this way, you're going to hell, an original sin? How does your family feel and or friends feel about where you're at now?
I want to answer that, but I want to say in my readings, I always tell my new clients, if the person you want to talk to doesn't come through in the first half, please feel free to interrupt me and ask me who you want to talk to. So that I don't want 99% of the time that never happens. The right person pops in. So I just want everybody to know I'm not just talking to somebody random that you don't want to talk to. My family, I have a very big family. My husband, who is the biggest skeptic of everything in the world, never questioned me, never put me down, never thought it was weird. Well, he might think it's weird, but he doesn't now. He was very supportive because I think he had seen me do some weird things in the past that I knew things before they happened. Like, we were driving from Savannah, Georgia to Central Florida for vacation. And all of a sudden I could see in my head, this was way before I was a medium, way before, I could see a car crash in front of us. And I said, slow down. We had our boys in the back. I said, slow down. There's going to be a car crash in about 30 seconds. And he did. He slowed down and there was a car crash in about 30 seconds.
Stop.
Yeah. And so things like that had happened. Yeah. So I think he kind of knew. And I always used to joke, I'm psychic, because I would know things. So he was never doubtful. My oldest son is very sweet and very supportive. My youngest son, who is 26, he has the ability to.
I was going to say, who probably is the psychic one in the family? Yeah. Mm-hmm.
He very much has the ability, and he's in that age where he's angsty. So he told me he's not ready. So he's, which is good that he's self-aware. But he used to talk to spirits as a kid all the time. He used to tell me stories every day. He had a job in heaven. He went to heaven every night. That was his job, to bring people across to heaven to meet their family. He told me these elaborate stories. He had a best friend in heaven. He had a name. He would talk to people who weren't there. We were in the car one day, and nobody's in the car but me and him. He was 3. And he's talking to somebody, blah, 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 blah. I go, oh, who are you talking to? He goes, oh, this little girl, her and her dad died out on the highway. I'm just telling her it's okay to go to heaven.
Whoa.
Yeah. So he told me stories like that all the time. And there was no way he would know anything about mediumship. I was not a medium, So, but he thinks I'm just having a phase.
He thinks you are?
I think because he's not ready.
Yeah.
Right?
So it's like, okay, you can shut it down anytime now. It's like,
Yeah.
Can't put the toothpaste back in the tube, buddy. Sorry. And that's what I mean. Like, people are always like, oh, like, blah, 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 and, I have my podcast, and you have a podcast, the Soul
Yes.
Twin Stars podcast as
Yes.
well. So if you guys want to listen to Peaceful Nik the Medium out in podcast world, she also has a podcast where I'm sure you talk about this. Like, I talk about all sorts of different things.
Last week was a polyamory.
Okay. So you're over here too.
Polyamory.
So you're as crazy as I am. Perfect.
This week it's about, Father's Day and dysfunctional fathers. And we have a mother on because my co-host father's passed and mine's, disassociated.
But yeah, like, so you have a podcast, you do talk about these things, but I feel that like the mediumship, like I do intuitive life coaching, that stuff is just who I am as a person.
Mm-hmm.
Like I do a podcast because I'm a curious person and I love humans and I think they're fascinating, which is why I do this. And I want to share people with the world that they might not be exposed to in their vortex of the planet. And so, but I feel, I don't know about you, I'm sure you do, that this is just who you are now. Like you can't undo knowing what you know.
And I say to people all the time, if you saw an alien standing in your living room, you could never not know.
Right.
That an alien is standing that aliens exist. And that's how it is with mediumship.
Yep.
Once you have so many experiences and you've done this for a certain amount of time, you're a medium forever, whether you use it or not. And spirit's not going to leave you alone if you don't. And so
I've always said they're up there going, we got a live one.
Yeah, exactly.
They can hear us.
And I tell them, look, it's like your antenna go up.
Yep.
And it's like a radio frequency. Spirit knows what frequency you're at and what you can connect with. And that's how it happened to me.
Same.
It was like, okay, it's time. Your kids are grown. I don't think I could have done this when my kids were younger. I just don't think I had the bandwidth for it. But they were grown and there they come. Boom, the antenna went up and here come all the messages.
Mine started off as like, I was getting my hair done one time in New Jersey and all I could smell was smoke. Like someone's smoking and I'm just like, what is that? And I'm like, how you do it, like, is this from the 3-dimensional? And I'm like, I just keep smelling smoke and I've been practicing mediumship. And she's like, oh, my grandpa smoked and he just died, blah, blah, blah. But then I didn't know what to say after that. Like, then I was like, and so I got in my car and I was just like, if you want me to do this, you need to teach me. I was just screaming and crying at the ceiling in my car. I'm like, I felt so stupid. And then, then the teacher appears, right? So then you like learn more and learn more and learn more. And do you think, I think that a lot of times this happens for people like you and I, like you're saying you had childhood trauma, to allow us the peaceful Nik, the peace of knowing that there's something, that we're attached to something bigger, that we're meant for something bigger, that we're not our trauma, that we're not our past, that we are meant for something great, and that we are given this kind of microphone, if you will, or earpiece into heaven that allows us to move past our trauma and to have a voice and like all the things.
I often ask, what came first, my trauma or my mediumship, right? Did my trauma cause my mediumship? Or was I destined to be a medium, so I experienced trauma? So I think it's all interconnected together. I don't think, because time and spirit doesn't exist the way we experience it here. I think all of it's interwoven and there's no beginning or end, right? Ironically.
I know, I just can't with time. The best way I've heard it is like a spiral like this, where it's all kind of living on top of each other. And like that just for some reason makes it just like feel less bizarre that like the forward and the backward don't exist. And there's just so this spiral kind of helps me not be so anxious about it.
Yeah.
I think for me, because my mom always used to be like, you're so sensitive, you know?
Oh my God. And you know what I say? Because I hear that still. Yeah, I'm sensitive.
I made a whole ass career out of it.
Yeah, I am sensitive. Thank you for noticing.
Well, I think like, didn't we have to learn to read people? Like, is today a safe day? Is today going to be a chaotic day? Is today like read the room? Okay, what's the energy walking in the room? Is the energy good? Is the energy okay? Wait, the energy's a little on the quiet side. Is the energy going to explode? Is the energy going to be invite all your friends over for ice cream? Like, what's the energy? Like spidey senses. And so I think that at a very young age, our spidey senses were very in tune to energies and frequencies, and
we had to be. We had to
be
heighten our senses. It's like I heard someone describe this as if you go blind as a child or you're born blind, your hearing is better. So we neither of us are blind, but our senses had to be heightened because we had to protect ourselves as much as we could as children and young people because of the wild chaos in the life of a traumatized person, right? There's always some bully or something negative or an alcoholic or an abuser, somebody always coming at you. So all your antennae are up all the time, like assessing the situation constantly. So yes, I agree with that completely.
Do you spend because I have rules for my mediumship. I was taught by in very quick, like hour one experience with Pat Longo, who also taught the Long Island medium. And she was just
who she was taught by.
Yeah, Pat Longo is her name. I don't know what she does now. I don't know if she still works or whatever. I think she does healing appointments. She's been on the Long Island Medium show a couple times as a guest.
Okay.
But she taught me rules to live. Everyone's always like, oh my gosh, you have to be so exhausted when you go to parties. I don't tap into anyone for any reason at all unless I'm invited, AKA an appointment, or like if someone's like, hey, XYZ, and I even try not to do that because you don't want to be a party favor. But I don't tap in. I'm not tapping into people. I think that's so rude to do that ever in any reason whatsoever.
Yeah, I agree. I was taught boundaries. And this is funny that you mentioned this because I used to have very bad social anxiety where I couldn't stand to be at a mall. I couldn't stand to be in a crowd.
Because you were tapping into everybody and probably didn't know it.
Exactly. I didn't know all the energy was coming in, but I learned through my mediumship training that you put up boundaries and you tell spirit, listen, I'm going to Disney World today. I don't need 35,000 people's energy like swords going into me. Yeah. And you just put up boundaries. And also I have this space. This is my office. This is where I do 99% of all my readings.
Yep.
Spirit knows when I come in here, I'm either going to be recording a podcast, doing a reading, or doing my other job. And they know the difference between my science job and my mediumship and when they're supposed to come in and not. So yeah, it's all about keeping your boundaries up and not just letting, the people's energy fly into your energetic space.
And all people should be doing this, P.S.
Absolutely.
You all should be siloing yourself. You don't have to. I remember when I first started this going, I need to be open so that I can help people. It's like, no, you're not helping your kids by commingling their energy. You're not helping your spouse by the enmeshment is not healthy. Stop doing it. It's not. You're not helping anybody.
You give up so much of yourself being a mom, first of all, that you don't need to be given any extra. You don't need to be, especially as your children grow up and change into adults. that whole relationship and that energy exchange should really shift and change. It doesn't need to be, oh, I'm going to do my son's 50 years old and I'm still going to manage his life. No, that's just emotional incest, actually, is what
Yeah.
that is.
Yeah.
We need to shift and change and not just give away everything. We're not meant to be martyrs.
No, not at all. And it doesn't help. I mean, like, even like I've had maybe 4 times in almost 2 decades where I have become emotional in appointments where it's just like,
Overwhelming.
and I've apologized, and like, I'm like, okay, I get a drink of water, because me getting all emotional is not helping the client. Like, now I'm making
Right.
it all about me. It's this whole drama situation. Like, I've had a couple times though in almost 2 decades where I've like, but I see now that I'm saying it, they're like, but we, of course they're showing up, but they're like,
Right.
but we needed you to, they needed to feel compassion from you. So I guess sometimes there is a reason, but again, maybe 3 times in almost 2 decades where I've become like, oh my God, I'm becoming emotional, but they're telling me right now that it was for a reason. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, when you see these people that are just like, the drama and the chaos and the emotion and the enmeshment and the fear mongering. So before we go, I do want to talk about what's the difference for the people listening between evidence-based mediumship and your dad loves you.
Oh, yeah. And I teach this in my classes too. There's a difference between getting, oh, dad loves you and he's so proud of you and he's sorry that he wasn't perfect. And your dad was from Sicily, and when he was traveling across the world, he encountered a woman on the ship on his way to Ellis Island, and that's the woman he married who became your grandmother or your mother. Sorry.
Mm-hmm.
Depending on the age of the person.
Right.
That's a very different story and that's evidence that there's no way a stranger on the internet would know. You want evidence in a reading that you can't look up on the internet. That's not in the obituary printed somewhere. Not now. I am absolutely sure there are fake mediums that do that stuff. They Google people's names. That's why if somebody gives me a fake name before reading, I'm perfectly fine because spirit knows who's showing up.
Yep. Don't care.
The less I know, the better, because my analytical mind will kick in if I know stuff. That's why I don't read for family and friends, because it'll trickle in. I'll give you an example. The other day, 99% of my information for my readings comes in on the right side of my head, the creative side, and very little comes in on the left. Well, the other day I do a meditation before every reading, and I'm doing my meditation. This young man comes through, blasting through the left side of my brain like a Scirocco in the desert, like just, and I'm like, oh my God, what is happening? And so I'm writing everything down. Left side, is he left-handed?